YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitch. This is the Fifth Chapter with Dennis Fithian and Brian Chapman.
He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, but people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall, and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state when that light turns red. So don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fifth Chapter. Brian Chapman, Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spit in the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fifth Chapter.
That's right. Welcome to the Fifth Chapter. I am Brian Chapman. He is Dennis Fithian. We're all the way up to episode number 43, Dennis. And we got an action-packed show, 5 fantastic chapters, including perhaps definitely one of our Detroit teams adding a piece or two.
Yeah, we're waiting for that. See what the Red Wings are going to do. We're also waiting for Facebook to kick in here so we can start reading your instant feedback. And same thing, which we are blasting live on YouTube. I want to give a quick shout out to Van Halen fans. We lost Eddie Van Halen today, one of the great guitarists of all time. Great rocker, man. Eddie Van Halen. Rest in peace, man.
R.I.P. Definitely want to send a shout out to him. Try refreshing your page because it certainly looks like Facebook is streaming on my end.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Also, want to send a shout out to our good friend Kang, who is a radio producer at 97.1. And he announced earlier today on Twitter why he had not been on the air since September 3rd. I didn't realize this, but it was because he was suffering from the effects of coronavirus. He had a fever of up to 103, and he's been off the air for over a month. I didn't hear him do his interview on the air, but I know that he tweeted out afterwards that he's doing okay. He's not at risk of death or anything like that. But for those that are still wondering if this is a joke, if this is just the flu, Kang is a new father. He has a child that's less than 2 years old. He is, I believe, around 40 years old, and he's been out of work for a month. I've never heard of a flu knocking somebody who's reasonably healthy otherwise out for a month. So definitely send your prayers to Kang, and hopefully he'll be back at work soon.
Good guy, yeah. Get well soon, Kang.
Absolutely. All right, Dennis, let's before we take a look at today's book, definitely want to thank everyone who's out there watching the show via Facebook Live, via YouTube, or via Twitch. And also want to encourage everybody out there, if you're not doing so already, to download the podcast at Apple, Google, or Spotify. And you can listen to any parts of the show that you might have missed, or you can decide to listen to it in addition to watching it. You can also like, subscribe, and participate in each show by sending in your feedback on Facebook Live, on Twitch, or on YouTube. Dennis will be reading your comments throughout the show. Let's take a look now at today's book. In the second chapter, Patricia made headlines after dropping to 1-3 with a post-game comment. We'll tell you what that will play the post-game comment for you and tell you how much longer he should last with the Lions. In the third chapter, we were just talking on Thursday about how this is going to be a very disappointing NBA Finals because of all the injuries for the Heat. They had different ideas about the finals on Sunday when they dominated the Lakers. Was it a fluke, or could they make it a series? In the fourth chapter, as we just mentioned, the Red Wings will be making their pick for the first round. We'll tell you what Steve Yzerman will be doing during the draft. And in the fifth chapter, it is the major wager. So very excited for all of that. Let's start out first, though, with the first chapter. And that takes us to the same old Lions. And not the team as a whole, but their quarterback, Matthew Stafford. He's the highest paid player on the team, highest paid player in team history. Therefore, the expectations for Stafford should be pretty high. And they have been for his entire career, and they've remained high this season as well, though they've seemed to dip as a lot of Lions fans have kind of figured out, well, he is what he is by now. But you look at what he did on Sunday. He quarterbacked a couple of early touchdown drives, but on those drives, Stafford was just a total of 3 for 6 for 72 yards. and that was thanks in large part to a big catch and run by a wide-open Danny Amendola and a short field after an interception. At the end of the game, he led them on 2 more touchdown drives, but in the middle 60% of the game, there was nothing. And thanks to his stat padding at the end, his final numbers still weren't even all that great. 17 of 31, 206 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns is great, 1 interception, a 94.3 passer rating on the season, a 60.6% completion percentage. That's 29th in the NFL. 62.1 QBR, that's 18th in the NFL, and 93.8 passer rating, that's 19th in the NFL. No matter how you look at it, Matthew Stafford is not having a great start to the season. Additionally, I found this tweet from our good friend Jeff Rieger that I want to share with you. And here's what it says. One more for you. The only quarterbacks that Matthew Stafford is better than, according to PFF, are Sam Darnold, Nick Mullins, Jeff Driscoll, Dwayne Haskins, Carson Wentz, Brett Whippen. Matt Stafford ranks 29 out of 35. Have you heard of all those quarterbacks? So a lot of Stafford defenders are probably not going to be happy to see a comment like this posted, which is just, the evaluation of Pro Football Focus for the start of the season. But now that you see that information, now that you've seen it for 4 weeks, and we know that Stafford Slappies like to say it's not all his fault, and I think it's fair to say it's not all his fault, but Dennis, should Lion fans be blaming Stafford for A, Sunday's loss, and B, this season's terrible 1-3 start?
Yeah, he's been part of the problem. You know what? 2011 was a long time ago, and I know Dan Orlovsky was thinking that, when Jim Caldwell here, like this team was like in some golden era or something, but that team just couldn't get over the hump and win big games. This team, the bottom is just completely fallen out. That's been the difference. You know what? He has been an enigma. He continues to be. He's not a Hall of Famer. He's not an elite quarterback. He's a good quarterback. He's got a great arm. And sometimes, because he's got such a great arm and he flashes some streaks where where he looks like an elite quarterback, you're saying, hey, that's my quarterback. And he's tough as hell. And, he's somebody to root for. He seems like a good guy in the community, but, he's just not an elite quarterback. And, after 12 years, it should be enough. I think that you can really like the guy and just realize that, the time has come to an end here. I can't see him playing beyond this year. I know every year we say, it's going to be a big year from Stafford. Well, this is a big year for the organization. Looks like it's over for Bob Quinn. Looks like it's over for Matt Patricia. And it looks like it's over for Matt Stafford.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know for certain that it's going to be over for him because you just never know with the Lions what kind of tricks they might have up their sleeve. They love making Matthew Stafford the highest paid player time and time again. But you're right, it is fair to put a whole bunch of blame on Stafford for this 1-3 start, highest paid player, and he's performing so poorly. And I think it's really as simple as that. When you're the highest paid player on the team, just based on that standard, you should be, if not the best, one of the best players on the team. And despite the 1-3 start to the season, I don't think it's fair to say he's been one of the best players on the team. You said that we know he's a good quarterback. I don't think that we can say. I'll just say this. I won't agree with that. I've always said he's an average quarterback. Sometimes he can be very good for stretches, and this is one of the stretches where he's been very bad. When you see that Pro Football Focus ranks him 29th, that's not average and certainly not good. When you look at the passer rating, the completion percentage, all that, it's not good or even average. I'm looking at Sunday's game, and I'm watching him, and I mean, he was as inaccurate as he's been since his first couple of years. If he's missing receivers by 3 or 4 yards. That deep pass in the second half to Marvin Hall, he was wide open in the end zone, and he missed him by like 5 or 6 yards. It was short. Time and time again throughout the game, he was missing receivers by 3 and 4 yards. And when you look at how the Lions were scoring, the Lions were getting lucky. It wasn't because Stafford was engineering drives. They had the interception that led to an 18-yard touchdown drive on the second drive. They had a 32-yard pass interference penalty that led to, I believe, their final touchdown of the game. I mean, this is one of the lower points of the Stafford era in Detroit. If you look at this first quarter of the season, I don't think it's certainly not as bad as the start of I think it was 2015 season when the Lions went 1-6 to start, and he got benched after throwing 3 interceptions to the Cardinals. But given the expectations that he's supposed to have with his contract, this is probably as low as it's been for him since then.
Yeah, you know what? Unfortunately for Matt Stafford, you see the elite quarterbacks, you see what happens when look at Aaron Rodgers, man. They didn't give him a receiver in the draft, and he's all ticked off, and he's got Aaron Jones, but you know what? He loses his top guy, and he loses Devontae Adams, then Lazard steps in, he's great, then he loses him, and he comes back last night, and he's fantastic. I mean, look at him. I mean, there's the difference. I mean, you see a guy that's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. You see an MVP, a guy that could win a Super Bowl, and you're saying, what's it going to take? How can he, push through and be that guy? Well, he would need to be like a Matt Ryan. The year they went to the Super Bowl, you'd have to put a top-ranked defense. You'd have to put tons around him. Atlanta had a running game. They had Julio Jones, and they had a top-ranked defense. If you do all of those things for Matt Stafford, I believe that it was possible for the Lions to make a run with him being the quarterback. But I don't know. You know what? He's so streaky when you watch him in bad streaks and sometimes with good streaks. That doesn't cut it when it comes to the playoffs. So, you know what? You just look at these 3 games. He could have got bailed out, by the rookie running back, and they could have won that first game. But you know what? He took a bad sack. He threw a terrible pick into triple coverage. That's the thing a rookie does. And
that was the first chance for dagger time, and they had 0 points in the fourth quarter. It wasn't like they had a touchdown first, and then they needed 1 extra touchdown. They got nothing in the fourth quarter during dagger time.
And you're going to throw picks, but, pin back to your own end zone, blind, again, like a rookie throw against the Packers to get picked. Now, this is his 12th year. And then the underthrow to Hawkinson, it's not like, he's a gunslinger. He was trying to fit. That was a terrible pass.
Yeah.
Man, if you're looking at that, you'd say, hey, you know what? Hopefully you learn if you're a rookie. I mean, he's not a rookie. So, bagging on him, he's sometimes he plays a little bit, you understand why people get so high on him because he's got a golden arm. But, it's not working here. They do need to move on. This has to be the last year for it. Whoever that new GM, a new coach is, I don't know why they would want him. I don't know why they would want to stick with a guy in his 13th year that has been uneven and has been an enigma. Man, if I was the new GM, if I was the new GM, if I was the new coach, I would just try to salvage whatever I can, get something for him, and move on and start with somebody else.
Yeah, and you mentioned Aaron Rodgers a minute ago about how he was able to overcome adversity. How about another guy, Russell Wilson? He's got DK Metcalf finally as a star receiver, but he's got one of the worst offensive lines in football. His defense has been pretty bad this year, but despite that, he's thrown, about 30, 40 touchdowns already. That's an exaggeration, but he's thrown a heck of a lot of touchdowns and leading the team to wins with a high-powered offense. He's overcoming adversity. What does Stafford slap us say all the time? Well, if they would just give him an offensive line and a running game and a top receiver and a defense and a good coach, I would say to you, if you give a quarterback all of that, he doesn't need to be great for the team to succeed. The quarterback that is great doesn't need all that, doesn't need half of that like Russell Wilson, and is still leading his team to greatness. That's a perfect way to put it. And you talked about last year. I agree if there's a regime change that they would want to get rid of him. And let's also not forget that Matthew Stafford put his house on the market. His wife put out that bogus excuse about, we live by a lake and we're afraid all of a sudden that the kids are going to go in the lake. That's not going to fly. And I have to imagine that not only would a new GM and new coach, assuming there is one, would not want Stafford, but Stafford going into his 13th year is probably going to say to himself, I don't want to go through another rebuild. No. Get me out of here.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be here. He wants to try somewhere else. I mean, he's tried here, and he hears all the criticism, and I think he understands it. I mean, he has to put it on his shoulders, and sometimes when you go through something, it's a whole change of scenery. There's another team, they should give him a shot, try to put something around him. He'll definitely find a starting job. It's just they tried everything here. The organization is a bad organization.
Yes.
They did try some different things and it hasn't worked here, but it is time to move on from him. And 2011 he was fantastic. That offense was really good. It wasn't his fault. Played really well against the Saints in that playoff game. So did Calvin Johnson. But the Saints never punted. He threw for 5,000 yards. He was fantastic. But even in that season, people they got buried. They were down 18 points 4 times that year, and he came roaring back. But I was always like, okay, that's great. But you know what? You can't keep falling down by 18, 20 points.
You have to be a 4-quarter quarterback.
You got to, but it was early in his career, and the talent was there, and you're thinking, all right, he knows that too. But a couple of years ago, the season where he had all those comebacks, it was like, man, he was playing fantastic. He was top notch, man. You want a guy, but certainly you'd like to have some leads. As I see the Red Wings select a guy named Lucas that I didn't see on any draft boards.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to some more information on him in the 4th chapter. Do we have any feedback to address?
Well, that's for whatever reason, Facebook's not connecting for me, so I am just going to the YouTube when they have the live chat. Keith is there. He is always pointing out how he's not a Lions fan. I know that in his background already. Greg is here. He's listening to us and watching the draft. Keith said Stafford deserves a lot of blame, but like I've said, it all starts with the GM, then the coach. DK Metcalf should be on the Lions right now. Instead, we have Jelani Tavai. Kind of stings. It kind of stings when you put it like that.
Yeah, Jelani Tavai getting stiff-armed and being out of position and all that. Not a good look for Bob Quinn. Not a good look for the Lions. By the way, before you get to some more of the feedback, one of the things that people have always said about Matt Stafford, they've nicknamed him Stat Padford because he likes to pad his stats late in games, and then people say, oh, he had 350 yards passing, and people say, well, yeah, it was against garbage time defenses, prevent. I mean, there was no real stat padding in the game on Sunday. He had 206 yards passing and 133 yards in the first half and only 73 in the second half. What they did to move down the field was have the Saints commit penalties a couple of times. That's not something that Stafford necessarily did, but not even a stat padding day for Stafford on Sunday.
No, Sunday's game was miserable. To have a great start like that, come down, be a front runner, and then completely just fold up. I mean, the defense sucks. I mean, there's no other way to get around that. In the 3 games, the defense has sucked. The outlier was against Arizona. They stood up and actually played. It was like, whoa, look at this defense making plays. But they sucked the other 3 games. And Sunday, man, Stafford, it was the error. The turning point in the game was him throwing that Hawkinson interception when he had him there. It felt like the game was over, and they never felt like they were going to come back. And the thing about the Saints is, I know they've won 13 games for the last 2 years, but their corners were out. Michael Thomas was out.
Yes,
that game was in Detroit. That was a game Detroit had to win. And
I actually picked them on game day to win that game because of that, and because of the Patricia push, because they like to win games in October, but that wasn't happening on Sunday. I'm actually able to pull up some of the comments on Facebook from DJ. Don't blame Stafford. Besides Calvin Johnson, they've given him garbage. Running backs who are either injured or stink, wide receivers, tight ends who can't catch, and offensive linemen who can't block. Just give him one of those things. I mean, he's had some of that. I also didn't understand why they shuffled up the offensive line on Sunday, moving Jonah Jackson from right guard to left guard, and then moving Vaitai from right tackle to right guard. Also from Lawrence, that offensive line has allowed 12 sacks. How does that rank? They should be 2-2, drop touchdown, SOL. And one more from John. Stafford needs a fresh start. I feel he is defeated. He is my dude. So definitely.
I understand him being your dude, and I understand it's not like Lawrence says, that it would be different if there wasn't a drop, but there was a drop. And,
yes.
It's always something like that. Sure, get him a better offensive line, get him a better running game, get him more wide receivers, give him a better GM, give him a better head coach.
Give him perfect everything.
He's not going to get any of those things here in Detroit. So whoever said he needs a fresh start, I'm right with you on that. I got the Facebook up right now, so whatever I was doing, I don't know what was going on. Keith says taking Hawkinson in the first round is dumb. They should have taken an impact defensive player and traded down, taking somebody like Noah Fant.
Yeah, I agree. But I will say
explosive. I hate the Lions, and this is a sample why.
I will say this: he did execute a nice jump ball for a touchdown in the second half. So that was pleasing if you're a Lions fan. You know that he's never going to live up to the 8th overall pick selection, but if you want him as a big tight end to make plays in the end zone, in the red zone, and at least he did that. So, all right, Dennis, let's turn the page to the second chapter, and we'll stick with the Lions.
Yeah, well, yesterday there was a general manager and a head coach fired, and people were like, ooh, are the Lions next? And it was Bill O'Brien down with the Houston Texans, who's the general manager, self-appointed, and the head coach. And they bounced him 0-4 after their 4 games. So Lion fans were like, hey, it's not too early. Where are you going, Sheila Ford? Get it done. So it does bring up the question here with the 1-3 Lions heading into the bye week. Just how long do Quinn Patricia have left here in Detroit, in your judgment?
Well, and that's especially an important question based on what Matt Patricia said at his post-game press conference on Sunday, which we'll get to in just a second. But look, I think that it's, first of all, if not Martha Ford, Sheila Ford were to fire Bob Quinn today, along with Matt Patricia, there wouldn't be any backlash. Like a lot when Jim Caldwell was fired, there was some backlash because he was a winning head coach. He certainly wasn't perfect, and you can look at some of the game management issues, but a winning coach 3 out of 4 years, playoffs 2 out of 4 years, there was some backlash there. If you fire Matt Patricia, if you fire Bob Quinn, there wouldn't be any. I've always said the best day to fire those two is a day that ends in a Y, and that's every day. If she does it now, it's fine. And honestly, if she does it at the end of the year, I think that's fine as well, because if you know that he's a bad coach, and we were just talking about how the Lions have to start over with a new quarterback, perhaps the best way to ensure that you're going to get yourself either Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence or the North Dakota State quarterback, who actually earlier today opted out of the rest of the season, is to keep Patricia, a bad coach, in charge to continue to tank like a no-limit soldier. If you now, that's not to say that if you get rid of Patricia, that Corey Unlin or somebody's going to step in and he's going to lead them to like a 6-6 finish or something like that. But you know what you got with Matt Patricia, and he's going to lead this team into a disaster. He'll get a big double-digit lead and blow it. So I don't think there is really a wrong move as long as these two are not in charge at the start of next year.
Yeah, that's fine. I want it done at any point, but I hear what you're saying. Maybe they'll just let it go the distance. Watching the game on Sunday, at the one point, the color analyst is like, maybe Matt Patricia should take over the defensive play calling. I've heard that one. The whole thing after the first game about blowing it in the fourth quarter, him, trotting out. That made one of the greatest calls in fourth quarter history against this offensive coordinator. And then this last Sunday when he's like, we knew we had a lot of work to do when we got here. It's like,
yeah, as a matter of fact, let's play that quote.
Couple that with Bob Quinn saying that 9-7 isn't good enough, and this is where we're tortured here.
Yeah, let's actually, for those of you who didn't get to see what Matt Patricia said after the game on Sunday, here is the question and the answer that a lot of folks in Metro Detroit and a lot of Lions fans are talking about.
Yeah, hey Matt, this is your 14th loss in the last 16 games. Why should people still believe that you're the right coach to turn this around?
Obviously, Mike, that's a, hard question. Obviously, we just lost to the Saints. Let's just give them credit for this game. They played extremely well, and I know we got a lot of work to do. Certainly, I think talking about this year right now, we're talking about right now, these first 4 games, and obviously today wasn't good enough. I think after 4 games,
So the key there was him talking about a lot of work to do, and when former Detroit Lion Dan Orlovsky heard that comment, he was incensed about that, and he actually took to the airwaves on ESPN. They've got some new show with Keyshawn Johnson, Zubin Mehenti, and somebody else. But here was his response when given the opportunity to get to what Coach Patricia said.
Before he got there, and we're going to come to Coach Caldwell's back, 1, because it's the truth, and 2, because we have immense respect for Coach Caldwell. First of all, We were 11-5 in 2014 and a really good football team. 2015, we go 7-9. It's because we turned the football over. But the last 8 games, we were 7-1. So flipped our season around. The next 2 years, we're 9-7. And I believe in week 17, we were playing Green Bay in both years for a chance to win the division. Okay? So to come in and say that you had a lot of work to do is completely false. It's a bunch of trash because that wasn't the case in Detroit. We were a good football team. Matthew Stafford was playing as good as he has in his career. That was because of Coach Caldwell. And we were an organization that was ascending. He was building. And you know what? Another thing, Z? Yeah. The culture was amazing. The culture was fantastic. So you had a winning record in 3 or 4 years. The culture was great. Your quarterback was playing really good football. So for him to come in and say that there was a lot of work to be done is a bunch of trash. Second of all, you know what Coach Caldwell wasn't? A finger pointer. Like, what coach comes in and says, oh, well, when I got here.
What did I say earlier?
Yeah.
I did this, Dan. I said.
Finger pointing.
I said the one thing I can sure tell you about that coach right there is he's doing this. He's looking straight ahead, but that left is going right, the right is going left. Finger point. All day long.
And just
finger pointing.
And it's wrong. It's false. And for him to go say that after being 10-25, to say that, to go, well, you know what? Before I got here, it was bad.
Wasn't me.
Here's the thing, Coach. No, it wasn't. We have eyewitness accounts of it not being bad. It was actually really good. It was a great place to be. It was a great place to work. We loved playing for Coach Caldwell, and we were a good football team. Were we great?
Now, when you hear what Dan Orlovsky said, I think that it's fair to say that some of it was probably puffing it up a little bit when he says that the football team was really good. I think it's hard to say they were really good despite having 3 winning seasons and 2 playoff appearances because they had 0 playoff wins in that span. But I think it's fair to say they were pretty good. And if you're a pretty good football team, which I think is a more accurate characterization, and then you don't need a lot of work to do. The Bob Quinn standard was, hey, Caldwell got fired because he couldn't win 10 games. All you have to do is win 1 more regular season game per year because they had 9 wins in consecutive years. And if you want to be a Super Bowl contender, you need to win 3 more games per year. Instead, with Matt Patricia saying they had a lot of work to do, he didn't get them 1 extra win per year. He had them get 3 fewer wins, then 6 fewer wins, and they're on pace right now to have 5 fewer wins. So just like Dan Orlovsky said, an absolutely trash comment by Matt Patricia.
Well, the Patricia years have been garbage. So I guess to compare the Orlovsky years there, those last couple years previous to Patricia, those are like the golden years if you're trying to compare them. But
for Lions, yeah.
But let's go back there. Those weren't any fine teams. You know, they made it to the playoffs in 2014. That was a good season for them, even though they weren't able to get over the hump against the Cowboys. But they came back the next year with everybody on that defense except Sue, and they replaced him with Elodie Nada, and they laid a gigantic egg. It was more than turnovers. Their offensive line sucked. The coaching sucked. They weren't ready for anything. It was an embarrassment, and they were done. I don't give them any credit for the second half when the season was over, for them Jim Bob Cooter figuring out Matt Stafford. That was probably the worst thing that was the worst thing that could have happened to him. Mm-hmm. And you know, those 2 years he's talking about fighting with Green Bay. In 1 year they had Green Bay, and Aaron Rodgers came in and snatched that game away in the 4th quarter, and it was over. And the other time it was already set what was going on. The Packers were resting because they were in the 4th quarter. It was the week before, when Cincinnati had nothing to play for, and they kicked the Lions' ass, and the season was over. And the 1 year they went to the playoffs and took on the Seahawks, that was an embarrassment. Like, that's the thing about Jim Caldwell. I like Jim Caldwell, and he was the best coach in my lifetime. But you know what? His team was nothing to write home about in the playoffs against the Seahawks. They didn't score a touchdown. Everybody dropped the ball. It was an embarrassment of a game. Mm-hmm. So, but you go from embarrassing games and not being able to get it done against Rodgers, now to complete and total trash. So, I mean, what are we comparing?
Well, at least during the Caldwell years, they had some big games. They just lost all the big games. Now they can't even get to the big games. And for this guy who's supposed to be a defensive guru Think about this. He said that they had a lot of work to do. He's given them more work to do, particularly defensively, because the last year of Caldwell, they gave up 356 yards a game. Last year, over 400 yards a game, and this year, 405 yards a game. That's worse. And then when it comes to points per game, last year, Caldwell, 23.5 points per game allowed. Last year, 26.4 allowed, and this year, 31.8 allowed. They're giving themselves more work as opposed to having less work to do. So, yeah, any day that you can fire him is a good day to do so. And by the way, one more thing I want to put up for everybody out there is a comment from Reggie Ragland. He had a sack in the game on Sunday. But here's a tweet from Chris Burke that I want to share with you that has the Reggie Ragland quote. And it says, rightfully, we should be 4-0 right now, but we didn't finish. We got the pieces. We got the coach. We just got to go play. Dennis, what do you think about Reggie Ragland saying the Lions should be undefeated?
Well, they should have beat the Bears. They should be 2-2. That's what they should have done. There was no way. How are they winning that game? I don't know what game. I know he was playing in it, but I'm not sure that he was watching the Saints score 35 unanswered on his team. I mean, how do you even make a case? Is he saying that if his quarterback, doesn't completely turn the game over with throwing a rookie touchdown? How are they beating the Packers exactly? They got their ass kicked in that game. They had zero chance in that game. I mean, they came out hot.
Yeah.
It's like you don't win it. Yeah, they've done good in the first quarter. They've been a good first quarter team. I mean, what?
First quarter champions
for them there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lions first quarter champions, 2008. They were the exhibition season champs. The Lions, so far in the first quarter of the season, they're first quarter champs.
Yeah, it's like when Denard Robinson in consecutive years got the September Heisman Trophy. I mean, you got to keep on doing it week after week against good competition, no matter what. All right, Dennis, let's turn the page to the third chapter. And unless we have some feedback we want to get to.
Well, you want to hear people ripping on the Lions? All right. What a joke. This is from Keith. What Patricia said, funny how the Texans fired their coach after 4 games, although he should have been fired for trading Hopkins. Quinn and Patricia should have been fired last year. I agree, Keith. They should have been fired last year. We saw what was going on here. We knew that it was hopeless. If it was up to me, I would have fired him too. But they came back. There's one thing about 2 years. It's like, man, it's this constant revolving door and everything else. Sheila, they were having the transfer of the power. So let's just go out and, see what they can do. And they've both landed flat on their face.
And by the way, Bill O'Brien goes to the playoffs all the time. Now, he doesn't always win. I believe he does have 1 or 2 playoff wins, but he takes his team to the playoffs all the time, and his team usually wins the AFC South, and they got rid of him. And so they had more of a Bob Quinn standard than Bob Quinn. Really, the Bob Quinn standard is, I want my BFF to be the head coach. I mean, that's all it is. I want my best friend in here. Caldwell made the playoffs the first year, couldn't fire a playoff coach. But the second I got a shot to fire him, I got him out of here and got my best friend in here. And no matter what he does, we're BFFs to the end. So if we go 1-15, he's coming back because I'm not firing my friend.
Yeah, it was like watching college football on Saturday. Jimbo Fisher went down to Tuscaloosa and got his ass kicked. His protege, they're trying to do the Crimson Tide way there in College Station. It's not working. The Patriot way, it's not working for anybody. Bill O'Brien, by the way, is the Patriot way too. It works for Vrabel a little bit. But other than that, it's not working for anybody else.
No, for the Patriot way, you need Belichick. Let's turn the page now to the third chapter, and that takes us to the NBA Finals. And it's been a weird first 3 games of the Finals. You had the Heat winning it all. You had the Heat winning it all. I had the Lakers winning it. And after Game 1, it looked like it was going to be a Lakers sweep because you had Bam Adebayo and Goran Dragic going down with injuries. And it looked like it was going to be similar to what happened last year with all the injuries. But after Game 2, we saw a Lakers team win by 10, but it wasn't a dominant victory like you would think with those key players missing. And then in Game 3, I could tell you, I went down to the casino on Sunday night. I put money on the Lakers to win big, and they were just getting smoked from the start. They briefly got the lead in the first half, but the Heat dominated that game with Adebayo and Dragic rotting on the bench. So now it looks like Adebayo's been upgraded to questionable for tonight's game. Dragic is going to see if he can deal with the pain in his foot. But we're certainly not looking at a sweep now, Dennis. That can't happen. But with this undermanned Heat team, do you think they can win tonight? Do you think they have a shot to actually win this series now that they have a victory under their belt?
No, like if Dragic was 100% and Adebayo, I would expect, what's he going to be, about 75%. He's just going to give it a Willis Reed out there for the Miami Heat. You know what? For one game, Jimmy Butler going out there getting a triple-double, and he wasn't going to go out with a sweep. You give it up to him, but I would think after the way Anthony Davis played in Game 3 and LeBron didn't play his best, that they'll come out and they'll put the hammer down. And we know this, that there's no way that they'll come back from a 3-1 deficit. So, tonight's the game to watch. Those role players that can really shoot those threes, like Duncan Robinson, the chance that I see for the Heat is for them to just have a great shooting night from Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson. If these guys can get in there, Jay Crowder as well. He's, relied upon so much defensively. I think about, the other two guys, man. If they can find their stroke, man, and have a really good 3-point shooting night, that would be the only way.
Yeah, just watching the game on Sunday, I felt like at any point in the second or third quarter, if the Lakers could just flip the switch, they could still win by 10, 15 points. And it just never happened because they kept on committing all these stupid turnovers, and some of them were forced by the Heat, so you got to give them credit. But, 19 turnovers, 8 by LeBron, 5 by Anthony Davis. You can't expect the Lakers to do that again. But on the other side, do you expect Markieff Morris and Kyle Kuzma to give you 19 apiece? That's probably as good as they're going to play, particularly Markieff Morris in a game. But yeah, I don't think, like you said, that Butler can carry them with another 40 points. I don't think that LeBron and AD are going to combine for just another 40 points. I don't think that AD is going to get into foul trouble like he did throughout the first half. I think that he could probably expect better than 6 out of 18 from Tyler Hero, who was building brick houses on Sunday. But I think that whether Adebayo and Dragic play or not, tonight has the chance to be the closest game of the series because every single game has been decided by double digits so far. I give the Lakers a slight edge to win this game because I still don't trust their supporting cast, and I like the grittiness that the Heat have defensively. But if the Heat don't win this game, then it's they've got no shot. I still don't trust the Lakers supporting cast around LeBron James and Anthony Davis. But I think that they have, when it's crunch time, they have the ability to win this game and certainly the series.
Yeah, just put the gambling aside. You'd like to see a long series to get some entertainment here to wrap up the bubble and, go out with a bang. But, things don't always work like that in the finals. The Lakers are going to have to help out there. And I don't see it. If I had to pick, and I'm not picking with my major wager tonight in this particular game, but if I had to, I would pick the Lakers in this one.
Yeah, I would go with the Lakers to win, but I think the Heat can keep it close. One thing I really liked out of the Heat on Sunday was that they were double teaming LeBron and Anthony Davis anytime they got close to the paint, and they were also picking up some charges on them as well. And if they're able to do that and force the little helpers to beat them, like a Markieff Morris or a Caruso or a Dwight Howard, KFC, then that's the Heat's best opportunity because it worked in Game 3.
Yeah, we know it's KCP, by the way. That's just what I called him when he was here.
That's your nickname.
In Detroit. My nickname for him, but he played well in Game 2.
Yeah, that's if you're a role player, if you're a fan of one of these teams, and you look at these role players, you just want them to show up for a game or two. If you can get 15 points from one of these guys for a game or two, and then the other games they're not committing turnovers and playing lackadaisical defense, that's all you want out of a role player. If you're the Heat, you want your Adebayo, your Dragic, and your Jimmy Butler to show up time and time again, and even a Hero. And if you're the Lakers, you want LeBron and AD to carry the load.
I'm with you. Let's get to the big night, NHL draft. Woo! That's coming up.
Yep, in the fourth chapter.
Yep, and for that, we go, and the pick is in. Detroit takes Lucas Raymond. Chap, what do you think of the pick?
Good question. I did look at the NHL.com top 10 overall prospects before the show because I figured that Steve Yzerman would certainly be drafting one of those guys. Even if he were to reach, it'd be one of those guys. I'm looking through it right now because off the top of my head, I don't remember that name being there. I think this might be a reach. Let's see, 4 or 5. Oh, here we go. No, Lucas Raymond, according to NHL.com, and I'll put the breakdown for you guys up on the screen. And he was ranked the 6th overall prospect. So if you're thinking it's a reach, it's not that big of a reach. He's a left winger, the 4th best international skater according to NHL.com. Right-handed shot, plays a strong two-way game with intensity, excellent vision, and a good wrist shot. He scored 10 points, 4 goals, 6 assists, and had 32 shots on goal, and averaged a little under 10 minutes per game in 33 Swiss Hockey League games. He's 18 years old, 5'11", $170. Obviously needs to put on some weight, and is regarded as having a nose for the net and being strong in the power play and the penalty kill. Look, my preference was to take the goaltender from Russia because not only do the Red Wings struggle in net right now, they don't really have anybody in the system that they can count on, but I also viewed this similar to the way I view the Lions, the Tigers, or the Pistons draft. All 4 teams are atrocious, and they need help anywhere they can get it. Therefore, take the best available player. As long as the Red Wings weren't going to go and have some huge reach, like for some guy that was ranked 18th overall by all the scouting services, I'd be okay with it. The Red Wings didn't do that. They got a guy who appears as a consensus top 10 pick. They need scoring, obviously. When they're getting outscored by 2 and 3 goals per game, they're the worst franchise in all of hockey. It didn't matter to me if they drafted the Russian goaltender or the top defenseman on their board or the top goal scorer on their board. It appears that's what they did, so I'm okay with it. This is not like the NBA or the NFL where we get to see these players in college all the time and we know exactly what they've done. If the hockey experts say that this is a top 6 or top 10 pick and Yzerman took him, I'm not going to rip him for it. I'll say it's okay.
Yeah, you know what? I think he got criticized a little bit last year for going for Mo Snyder, but that ended up looking like, after the fact, a pretty good pick here. Yzerman's got a pretty good track record. You know, the one thing, it was a disconnect, or it was a kind of a clue on what kind of team Yzerman expects, his team to have this year, is that not very good when they're making a trade and just taking on salary. It's not like they're going into this year. They're showing their cards like, hey, this is not like I was expecting them not to be a bottom 5 team this year, and they were the worst team in the NHL. And then after this year, I thought, okay, they're going to leave the bottom 5 and start at least maybe not being a playoff team, but, be one of those teams that at least over the last month you can stay in. But it doesn't seem like Steve Yzerman thinks that with this team. So this is a real long play. And if you're a Red Wing fan, just buckle up. You'll probably be in a similar spot. Hopefully, this sounds stupid because the way things have gone here lately, you can get the lottery ball to drop your way one of these years here. But I would expect this team to be a lottery team again next year. So, good luck.
Well, and more important than the lottery ball dropping your way is for the pick to pan out. Because if this guy ends up being the 1st or 2nd or 3rd best player in the draft, and he's a guy who makes the NHL roster in his 1st season or in his 2nd season, that's important. For years, like I remember when the Red Wings drafted Filip Zadina, I remember that he was projected to go number 3. He fell to number 6, and Red Wings fans were thrilled that he fell to them at number 3 or to number 6. And then I saw that on opening night, each of the top 5 players made their opening night rosters, and Zadina didn't. And now we're seeing it's been 2 or 3 years since he's been taken, and it looks like there is a reason why he fell, because he certainly has not panned out so far to be a guy that's going to be scoring 40, 45 goals per game. There's obviously time for him to grow, but so far, he's not looking like an NHL Hall of Famer.
No, and there are plenty of players to look at across the NHL that were picked for that are really good selections. The Avs a couple of years ago took Makar. He's one of the top 2 defensemen in the league right now. So it can be done, but it's going to be a while before we find out about Lucas Raymond,
And as
the Red Wings pick.
Yeah, and as far as Steve Yzerman is concerned, he did not show up in person to the Red Wings draft party. And you're probably thinking, why is that? Is he going back to Tampa because now they won the championship? No. Here's a statement from the Detroit Red Wings. Detroit Red Wings Executive Vice President and General Manager Steve Yzerman will participate remotely for both days of the 2020 NHL entry draft. He was exposed recently to an individual who tested positive for COVID-19. Yzerman has received multiple negative test results and is experiencing no symptoms. Out of an abundance of caution, however, he will join the Red Wings hockey operations staff virtually for the entirety of the 2020 NHL entry draft. So we definitely wish him the best of health as he deals with, hopefully not the coronavirus, but at least being exposed to someone who tested positive for the coronavirus.
I'm with you on that. All right, Red Wing fans. Keith is a big Tyler Hero guy, talking basketball. Nothing. Yeah, we get it. The Red Wings, you just kind of cross your fingers and hope they are able to get it right. That gets us to the 5th chapter.
Yes, it does. And that means it's time for the major wager. And Dennis, brief us on what you did last Thursday and tell us who you're thinking about tonight or tomorrow.
Well, what I'm thinking about is really betting on these games because just on the 5th chapter, if I would be following my wager advice, I would be doing really well. Last week, I looked to both the Bills and the Colts. I love those games, and that's why I put 50 apiece on both of them, and both of those picks came through. So I've been adding it up. Usually I've just been playing 25, but I played 50 on both of those because I felt it, and it came through. So it bumps me up to, 540. That's where my bankroll's at. I do have 25 out there out on the Heat with the money line. That's not looking so good. And I got a couple futures for the NFL, but we're not going to know for a while on those, like the Jags under. It's not looking so hot right now. I guess it is actually looking all right. They've only got one win. But I looked at the NFL menu briefly today, and a game that jumped out at me was the Browns. Cleveland Browns are at home, and they're getting 2.5 points by the Colts. Colts defense is playing really well. It's number 1 ranked defense in the NFL. They got a really good offensive line. But, man, Phillip Rivers, I was watching a little bit of that game last Sunday. Phillip Rivers, I'm going to say he is washed. Does not look like a even good starting quarterback here. Jonathan Taylor's good. Offensive line's good. Defensive line. But Phillip Rivers, not so much. I like the Browns to win that game outright. Of course, I'll take the points. I'm gonna just put a little 25 on that game. The Browns plus 2.5 coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, today I went with one of the earlier baseball games, and I picked the Oakland A's to win straight up at minus 108. I obviously didn't want the Houston Asterix to win, but I also thought it was a good matchup. Astros going up against Sean Manaea, decent left-handed pitcher. Astros, one of the worst teams in baseball against left-handed pitching. And surprise, surprise, the Astros won that game 5-2. So that was obviously a terrible bet. I also was looking at the Padres. They're plus 1.5 at minus 140. Mike Clevenger's pitching today. It's actually a great pitching matchup, Clevenger and Walker Buehler. You're getting a run and a half at minus 40. I think that's pretty good value. Great lineups, great pitching staffs. Might as well take the run and a half. And then I mentioned this earlier. I like the Heat plus 8. Adebayo's questionable. Perhaps he'll play. The Heat didn't need Adebayo to cover or I guess to push in Game 2, and they didn't need Adebayo to win in Game 3. So I like the Heat plus the 8, but of course my record says that perhaps you shouldn't trust what I say.
Ooh, well, it's something that we still enjoy. We get entertainment out of you making your selections, and hey, we just go the other way. So we appreciate it.
That's right.
We appreciate your picks. All right, chap. Coming up on Thursday's show, will it just be football to look at? Will basketball be in the rearview mirror? that's one of the things to look out for. But we'll also be looking ahead at NFL week number 5 here on the Fifth Chapter. So for Brian Chapman, I'm Dennis Fithian. Thanks for watching and liking and doing all those things that you do, commenting during the show. We appreciate that. So long.
Represents
Talk
the
to you
mitten by
Thursday
way
at
of Penn
7:30.
State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, but people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall, and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state. When that light turns red, so don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fifth Chapter. Huh. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spitting the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fifth Chapter. Huh. Huh.